Okay, thank you, Bryn. Thank you, councillors. Welcome to our extraordinary meeting of council, which has been convened to consider a recommendation of the Regulatory and General Purposes Committee in respect of the posthumous conferment of the title of Honorary Alderman on former councillor Bill Davies. May I also extend a warm welcome to members of the public who are watching our webcast. I would like to remind all members to turn your camera and microphone off if you haven't done so already. Before we turn to the business for the meeting, I will ask Vicky Shaw to undertake a roll call of members. Please, can I ask that you introduce yourself for the benefit of people watching the webcast and to speak clearly into your microphones. When you have finished speaking, please turn your camera and microphone off. Vicky, roll call.
Good evening, members. Councillor Anderson.
Good evening, Tom Anderson, present.
Councillor Berry.
Good evening, Councillor Berry, present.
Councillor Bird.
Good evening, it's Councillor Joe Bird.
Councillor Burgess-Joyce.
Good evening, Vicky. Councillor Burgess-Joyce present.
Councillor Cameron.
Good evening, Councillor Cameron present.
Councillor Cannon.
Good evening, Councillor Cannon present.
Councillor Carubia.
Good evening, Vicky. Councillor Carubia present. Thank you.
Councillor Clements.
Good evening, Mr Mayor. Councillor Wendy Clements present.
Councillor Collins.
Good evening, Mr Mayor. Councillor Mike Collins present.
Councillor Cooke.
Good evening, Mr Mayor. Councillor Cooke present.
Councillor Corkhill.
Andy Corkhill present. Good evening, everyone.
Councillor Courtier. Don't think he's present, Mr Mayor, on the system at the moment. Councillor Cox.
Thank you.
Present.
Councillor Davies.
Councillor George Davies present. Sorry.
Councillor Foulkes.
Councillor Steve Foulkes present.
Councillor Frost. Can't see that Councillor Frost is present on the system at the moment, Mr Mayor.
Okay.
Councillor Gardner.
Andrew Gardner present.
Councillor Gilchrist.
Yes, good evening, Councillor Gilchrist present. Thank you.
Councillor Greaney.
Good evening, Councillor Greaney present.
Councillor Green.
Good evening, Mr Mayor. Councillor Jeff Green present.
Councillor Gray.
Good evening, Councillor Gray present.
Councillor Paul Hayes. Councillor Paul Hayes.
Present.
Councillor Steve Hayes.
Good evening, Councillor Steve Hayes present.
Councillor Andrew Hodson.
Hello, Mr Mayor. Vicky, I'm here.
Councillor Cathy Hodson.
Councillor Cathy Hodson present.
Councillor Johnson.
Present.
Councillor Adrian Jones.
Good evening, Councillor Adrian Jones present.
Councillor Chris Jones.
Good evening, Vicky. Councillor Chris Jones present.
Councillor Tony Jones.
Good evening, everyone. Councillor Tony Jones present.
Councillor Jordan.
Good evening, Councillor Mary Jordan present.
Councillor Kenny.
Good evening, Councillor Brian Kenny present. Thank you.
Councillor Leech.
Good evening, Councillor Anita Leech present.
Councillor Lewis.
Good evening, Mr Mayor and Vicky. Councillor Ian Lewis present.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Good evening, councillors. Councillor Murray McLaughlin present.
Councillor McManus. Councillor McManus? I think you're on mute. Are you able to come off mute, Councillor McManus? I think we can see Councillor McManus and see she is present. Councillor Mitchell?
Present. Good evening.
Councillor Muspratt? I don't think Councillor Muspratt's indicated as present on the system, Mr Mayor. Councillor Nolan?
Good evening. Councillor Nolan present.
Councillor Norbury?
Present.
Councillor Povall?
Good evening. Councillor Povall present.
Councillor Rennie?
Councillor Leslie Rennie present.
Councillor Robinson?
Good evening, Councillor Jean Robinson present.
Councillor Rowlands?
Good evening, Vicky and Mr Mayor. Councillor Rowlands present.
Councillor Spoor?
Good evening. Sarah Spoor present.
Councillor Spriggs?
Good evening, Councillor Christine Spriggs present. Thank you.
Councillor Stapleton?
Yes, good evening. Councillor Jean Stapleton present.
Councillor Stuart?
Good evening, Councillor Paul Stewart present.
Councillor Sullivan?
Good evening, Vicky. Mike Sullivan present.
Councillor Walsh?
Good evening, Councillor Joe Walsh present.
Councillor Whittingham?
Good evening, Councillor Wiscombe present.
Councillor Irene Williams?
Good evening. Councillor Irene Williams present.
Councillor Jerry Williams?
Good evening, Councillor Jerry Williams present.
Councillor Steve Williams?
Councillor Steve Williams present.
Councillor Williamson?
Good evening. Councillor Williamson present.
Councillor Wood? Can't see Councillor Wood on the system, Mr Mayor.
Yeah.
Councillor Wright?
Good evening. Councillor Wright present.
Thank you. I'll just check whether those members who weren't present before, whether anybody has joined us. So, Councillor Cottier? No. Councillor Frost? No. Councillor Muspratt, I think, is having some technical difficulties.
I think you do now.
Yeah,
I'm back in now. Thank you.
Okay. And Councillor Wood? Yeah, so I think Councillor Wood, Councillor Cottier and Councillor...
Any members present who have names haven't answered the names? No? Okay, thank you. Thank you, members.
Yes, Mr Mayor, Councillor Brame here. I've just joined the meeting. Sorry I'm late.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay, declarations of interest. Members are asked to consider whether you have any disclosable pecuniary or any other relevant interest in connection with the matter to be determined at this meeting, and if so, to declare it and state the nature of such interest. Can I remind members that if you have a personal and prejudicial interest and need to leave the virtual meeting room, you're asked to hang up from this meeting, stay by your computer, and officers will call you back into the meeting at the conclusion of the item that you had an interest in. Can members please indicate now if they have any interest they wish to declare? No? Okay, thank you. Right, I had been notified of the following apologies, but Councillor Alan Brame is here now. Councillor Pat Cleary. I can't remember whether Councillor Sharon Jones is in or not.
No, Mr Mayor, Councillor Sharon Jones wasn't
yes,
present.
she did say she might be able to. Okay, so that's an apology. Councillor Stuart Kelly and Councillor Tom Usher. So those ones that have been given have not got on this evening. Okay, conferment of the title of Honorary Alderman. Councillors, we now consider tonight's item of business in respect of the recommendation of the Regulatory and General Purposes Committee from its meeting on the 18th of November 2020, minute number 8. Tonight's meeting is purely to progress the business of conferment, and arrangements will be made to enable myself to present the Honorary Alderman badge to former Councillor Davies's family at the time when it is convenient and safe to do so. As set out in the agenda papers, Section 249 of the Local Government Act 1972 provides that the title of Honorary Alderman may be conferred by the Council on persons who have, in its opinion, rendered eminent service as past members of the Council or a predecessor Council, but who are no longer councillors. This title is to be conferred by a resolution passed by not less than 2/3 of the members voting thereon at the meeting of the Council specially convened for the purpose. I would like to invite Councillors Mara McLaughlin and Andrew Hodson to move and second the motions detailed on the summons. Councillor Mara McLaughlin.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Seconder, Councillor Andrew Hodson.
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much. I now ask Councillor McLaughlin, as proposer of the motion, you may now address the Council.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm honoured and privileged tonight to be moving that the title of Honorary Alderman be conferred on former Councillor Bill Davies. When I spoke to Council in September to put on record the Council's appreciation of the long service that Bill had given to Wirral and in particular to Rock Ferry as he left the Council, I hoped then to be able to repeat that with Bill here as this title was conferred on him. But sadly, we're not able to do that as Bill lost his fight for life just a couple of weeks later. So tonight we're doing something unusual but hugely important in conferring this title posthumously. It's important that it's done because Bill did give that 34 years of exemplary service to this borough. It's important that his name is permanently remembered and it appears on the list of those honoured in this way. But on a personal level, it's important that his wife and family and friends know how much he was valued. During 34 years that Bill was a Wirral councillor, first for Tranmere Ward and then after the boundary changes for Rock Ferry, he did display that level of dedication which entitles him to this accolade. But it wasn't just the length of service he gave, it was that deep understanding of the people he served and the absolute commitment to doing what was right for his constituents. Bill was born and brought up in Rock Ferry and was part of a big family, and his roots were in that community. He understood it. He was realistic, certainly, about the issues and problems there, and he's very well known, but he's still highly regarded there. He served on licensing for many years and was chair of that for a considerable time as well. And again, here, he made sure that he understood that brief thoroughly. I think across the council, Bill was known for his warmth and loyalty, and that made him a friend to many. He was really less interested in what party a person belonged to and far more interested in what kind of a person they were, and he was astute at working that out. He also had a good sense of humour and he could spot a fake from a mile away. He was, in other words, an example of what you see is what you get. To make this award posthumously is an unusual occurrence, and it is no small way due to Councillor Andrew Hodson's efforts as Chair of Licensing, and I would like to thank him and all Bill's former colleagues on licensing for pressing for this to happen. Since Bill passed away, many of his former councillor colleagues have been in touch with me, and I know they've been in touch with his family to share memories of Bill and to recognise those very human, warm qualities he had. His cheerfulness, his ready to help and support, his keenness to make sure that his beliefs were never compromised. I know his family were very proud of him. To Chris Meaden and I, he was a very much valued ward colleague for 24 years as we worked together. And for the people of Rock Ferry, he was their man. I said when he left the council that he would be greatly missed, and he is. And so I ask that council support that Bill Davies has the title of Honorary Alderman of the Borough of Wirral conferred upon him. And thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. I now call on Councillor Andrew Hodson, a seconder of the motion, and would you like to address the council?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm delighted to second this notice of motion. I've listened to the accolades that have been said tonight with regards to Councillor Bill Davies, and I would like to associate myself with all those kind comments. He deserved all those kind remarks, which I know were heartfelt, and I've known and worked with Bill for 27 years. And in all that time, we never had a cross word, as I think it was an impossibility to do so with such a man. And that will give you a clear indication to his personality. We may over the years have had differences of political views and differences of opinions, but he always heard our views to one another in quite a respectful manner, and we could debate and agree to disagree in a very amicable way. As Moira said, he had a very pleasant sense of humour, and he did have quite a chuckle. But through everything that went on, Bill and I always had the greatest respect for one another, and I know he showed that respect to many other councillors, irrelevant of what party they were in. I will miss him on licensing because his knowledge of the subject was expansive, and he always arrived at a fair and sensible decision. He was well thought of by his constituents, and I know he will be missed by all in the wards he represented. As most of you know, it is, as mentioned, it's first for Bill to have the honour of Alderman bestowed upon him posthumously, but I believe it is quite fitting for somebody who has served his community for a total of 34 years to have this exception made for them. I, joined by fellow council, was determined he was going to receive this honour, and I'm sure his family and his wife will be delighted and very proud of the outcome tonight. Well done, Billy. I'm more than happy to second this notice of motion. Thank you, Councillor Hodson. Before I move on to contributions from other councillors, I'm going to ask the Deputy Mayor, Councillor George Davies, to say a word. George.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Deputy Mayor and also a very long-standing friend of Bill, I would like to pay tribute to his years of dedicated service with this council. He has always been a very well-respected councillor and has served the people of Rockferry since 1986, a record to be proud of. He grew up in the area and always said it was a great privilege to represent the people in the area where he was raised. Bill was always happy, cheerful, and always had time for everyone. He was a proper gentleman, and I am delighted that tonight we are remembering him for all the many years he dedicated to not only the people of Rockferry, but the whole of the Wirral, and in particular, the Labour Party. My thoughts go out to his wife Linda and her daughter, and all of Bill's family. You will never be forgotten, and thank you for your great friendship over the past 35 years. God bless you, Bill. Rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Now, I'm opening it to other councillors who wish to speak. So can you indicate in the chat room, please? Right, let me just take down some names quickly. Keep your hands up. I can't. Right, I'll get them from Steve. Can you take down some of the names for me? I'll start with Councillor Jeanette Williamson. Jeanette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, colleagues. I would just like to echo the sentiments of the previous speakers. Bill was a fantastic public servant, a councillor of 34 years, something I can only dream about and aspire to. He was a really kind man. He helped me out considerably when I first became a councillor, as we lived really close to each other. He was always there to dispatch advice and really welcome words to me. We'd often share a car ride where we discussed various matters. He served Wirral residents in an exemplary fashion as chair of licensing, and I know we've all got a lot to be grateful to Bill about. So I'd just like to, as I say, echo the words that have been said previously, to add my own to tonight's meeting, and to wish him and his wife Linda and his family the kindest of regards and respect. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jeanette. Councillor Ian Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies, the sound wasn't working for a moment. Mr. Mayor, like many others, I also found Councillor Bill Davies to be one of the most reasonable, good-natured and considerate of members. And on behalf of the Conservative group, I would like to thank Councillors Moira McLaughlin and Andrew Hodson for enabling this special meeting tonight and enabling Council to confer this recognition on the late Councillor Davies. I doubt, Mr. Mayor, that even after 34 years that Councillor Davies ever fell out with councillors or made enemies. And as Councillor McLaughlin has outlined, he took the same approach in his ward and for the people of Rock Ferry over those years. On the couple of issues that I took to the then licensing committee, Councillor Davies was always fair, always unbiased and keen to reach agreement across all the parties on behalf of the people that we all represent. And like former councillors Blakely and Watt, Councillor Davies is sadly missed, but tonight's vote will, I hope, show his many friends and family how much he is missed by all who knew him. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Councillor Dave Mitchell. Dave. Councillor Mitchell.
I do apologise, Mr. Mayor. I thought I had it unmuted. I'm delighted to speak on this occasion. Bill joined the council, as it was said, 34 years ago, 3 years after I became a member of the council. We worked together first in the old Works Committee. Now, that was a turbulent time and very interesting for those members who like history of what happened in the council. But Bill, as been said previously, was a true gent and he worked with everybody. You've heard now 3 different political parties speak in relation to Bill's ability to communicate with his fellow colleagues on the licensing committee, mainly in the latter years, which I served with him. I fully concur with the comments from Andrew Hodson and Moira, because like Bill, I'm a Rock Ferry lad myself, and we were brought up in those times to respect people, listen to what people had to say, and get on with life. Bill did that, and he did it all his life, all his working life. I know he was greatly respected all the times. He was the whip of the Labour group, and it really saddened me that in the end he had to leave the Labour group and become independent. The last time I gave a lift home, Bill, from the licensing committee, his words were to me, "I didn't leave the party, you know, it left me." And I fully agree with the comments that he made. This honour is well worthy of a true gentleman and a wonderful councillor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Mike Sullivan. Mike.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to concur also with all the platitudes that have been given tonight for a great guy called Bill. Andrew, it was heartfelt there, and you touched my heartstrings, Andrew. Well said. Bill, when I first joined the council nearly 9 years ago now, Bill was the chief whip. So I stepped out of line a few times, and Bill was always there, not to admonish me, but to put his arm around me and give me some wise words of encouragement, and how councillors should operate, both in the town hall and outside the town hall. And I greatly respected Bill. Bill was one of these guys who gave his life, and he did give his whole life, to the trade union movement and to the Labour Party. And it was sad in the end when I was giving Bill a lift home. People from the Labour group who used to give him a lift home withdrew that when Bill felt honourably, the only honourable thing left for Bill and Moira to do with what happened in Rock Ferry was to resign the Labour whip. And it gave them great sadness, excuse me, Mr. Mayor. And it also gave me great sadness to have to resign the Labour whip. But it's political and those things happen. But all I can say is Bill was a true friend. He was a true and hard-working socialist, working for his community in Rockferry, where he was born and raised, and he will be sadly, sadly missed by me in particular. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks everybody for their words right across the political spectrum. It means so much. Take care, all of you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. And next one is Councillor Yvonne Nolan. Yvonne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the Bill, all the things that have been said about Billy are absolutely accurate and true. I've known Billy for 33 of those 34 years that he was a councillor, and always was the kindest and a true gentleman. He really was. But above all, he worked so hard and was so committed to the people of Rockferry. And there was a palpable shock and sadness amongst people in Rockferry when Bill passed, and not least amongst the Labour Party branch of Rockferry. People were very shocked and very saddened, and did attend online his funeral and did send tributes to that funeral, because he was very, very well respected and very well liked, not just in the Labour Party branch, but talking to people across Rockferry. Everybody knew Bill. So many people went to Bill for help. Over 50 years, when he was politically active, he totally believed he was a totally committed socialist and a man worthy of anyone's respect. And he certainly had mine, and he certainly had the respect of all party members that I know, and certainly all councillors across the political spectrum. So yes, I join those sentiments. Rest in peace, Bill. You can certainly be satisfied that you lived a good life and you dedicated yourself absolutely to your beliefs and to your values. So thank you, Bill, for that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nolan. Councillor Stuart Whittingham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This honour is absolutely well deserved, and it's so sad that Bill is not here to receive the honour in person. I've known Bill for many years, even since before I came on the council. But when I did come on the council, as one of the new kids on the block, Bill took me and others under his wing, and offered their friendship, help and advice, and I become a better councillor because of that friendship and advice. Public see people at council meetings, but Billy, he was always in the community. He was constantly working on behalf of the community, virtually full time, passing cases on as he come across it. And I'm sure he's really missed within his local community, and I miss him as a colleague and as a friend. On reflection, Bill's fundraising nights were legendary, and we had many enjoyable evening, having a laugh and raising funds and having a good time, for the Labour Party. And Bill's a linchpin for those social evenings, of which there were many. So rest in peace, Bill, and you did yourself, your community, and your family proud. Cheers, bye.
Thank you, Councillor Whittingham. Councillor Paul Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, when I was first elected in 2016, Bill Davies was a real support to me, and he took me under his wing when I started attending licensing meetings, and everything I know on licensing came from Bill. Bill, as has been expressed already here this evening, was absolutely a true gentleman. And wherever you went with Bill, there was always someone who knew him. It didn't matter what part of Wirral that you were in, whether you were campaigning, whether you were out for drink with him, whether you were just walking down the street. There was somebody who knew him. He was related to everybody. He was a genuine, true socialist and a genuine nice guy. Heartbroken that he's left us, and I would just like to sort of end on these few words, that those we love don't go away. They walk beside us every day, unseen, unheard, but always near, still loved, still missed, and very dear. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stuart. Councillor Phil Gilchrist.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're talking about a colleague that we've lost. He was warm, he was fair, and as members have said, he was a great support to them and a source of considerable advice. I occasionally gave Bill lift home as well. He never complained about my driving, and so he was a down-to-earth member. He offered hope to his community, and I know he talked about his workplace in the early days. He offered help to his workmates. All the tributes that have been given tonight are to a man who was from the grassroots, and heartfelt tributes from all sections of this chamber across all parties. Bill is sorely missed, and this honour tonight is for him and for his family.
Thank you, Councillor Gilchrist. I now ask Councillor Jean Stapleton. Jean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to speak, but I couldn't not speak because I thought so much of Bill. He was a great local councillor, as everybody said tonight, and he represented his residents in his beloved Rock Ferry with all his heart, his loyalty and all his ability. He was an extremely kind and considerate man. Indeed, he was a gentleman, and there's very few of them, in my opinion. He worked well with all councillors, no matter what party. We always remained great friends, even though he felt he had to leave the Labour Party, but that did not affect our friendship. I will miss his advice and encouragement. He was such a kind man. He will be remembered with great fondness by us all. I certainly will miss our conversations we had when we used to drive to the town hall and back. We covered every subject and laughed a lot, and I will greatly miss him. Rest in peace, Bill. We will never forget you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor David Burgess-Joyce. David.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will keep it brief because I'm conscious. I met Bill before I became a councillor in 2015. I volunteered to be a member of the standards panel, and he was the chair. And I have to say, he was so kind to me because I was a bit terrified coming into the town hall and not knowing what I was doing. And he was so utterly kind to me. And we'd have long chats about detective series because he was fascinated about, you know, a detective series, and we'd go into great detail about who killed who and what have you. And when I joined the council as not as a socialist, I hasten to add, he was still the same guy that he was when he was on the standards panel when I was just an independent member. He didn't change one iota, and he was as kind to me then as he had been when I was on the standards panel as an independent. We'd actually meet quite often in Birkenhead town centre, and I think somebody's already referred to it, Mr. Mayor, that he knew everybody. I kid you not, the last time I met him, we must have spent an hour standing outside Asda in Birkenhead, and he only said about 3 things because every single person who went past knew Bill Davies. It was truly staggering, the number of people who knew him and who he knew. And I can only assume that if he's listening now, which I'm sure he is, he's probably thinking, all these nice things that have been said to me, you should have said them to my face when I was here. I accept that. But I genuinely, even though I'm on another side politically, I thought he was one of the nicest, kindest men I have ever met. And I suppose the only regret, Mr. Mayor, is I didn't know him longer. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jerry Williams. Jerry.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony. Well, again, my years on the council aren't as anywhere near as long as Bill's was, and I'm 23. But Bill was just a wonderful, lovely person who, as you would say, well away from political, boundaries. He associated with everyone. He was great to speak to in conversation, but also very, very able at all the things that he did. He was just superb. I mean, his chief whip, what an excellent job he always did in that regard. But everything he did, he was really very capable at. And when we think about all the people that come and go off the council, you think all the time that people put in. And, it's very right that we should recognise, what Bill did on the council and his contribution to the for the people of Wirral. And as you say, there's many other elected members who have done wonderful work that we've lost in the last few years. And it's sad it tells me I'm getting older, when I see so many people going, and it's just really, really sad. But as another person who often gave Bill a lift, Bill was just lovely, and everyone had the highest regard for him, and was so sad about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I don't think I've got any. I haven't missed out anyone, have I? No. No.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Andrew. Yes.
Can I just apologise? I'm quite emotional tonight. I came in too soon. I should have been the last one to second it, so I'm sorry about that. I do apologise, but my comments were still heartfelt. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andrew, for that. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for those wonderful tributes to Bill. Yes, he was a wonderful councillor. Worked really, really hard in his ward in Rockferry, Tranmere before that. Thank you, Mara and Andrew, for pushing this the way you did. I'm sure it's his family really appreciate what we have done this evening. I'm just delighted to be able to be here this evening to bring this forward. And that I did see another hand going up. Sorry about this. Steve Hayes. Steve, did you want to say something? Sorry. I'm just stopping. Steve?
Sorry, no, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I couldn't take it down. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Yes, okay. So thank you very much, all the members from all different parties. I'm sure the tributes that were paid to Bill tonight were truly deserved, and that. And now I just want to move on to the next part of the meeting, and that's now to the voting. I'm now going to take this vote by assent. So if any member is not in agreement, can you please say so now or indicate in the chat facility? No. Okay, we take that by assent. So what I will do now, I brought along this evening, just wait a moment. the medal that is going to be, that I will bring to Bill's family. If I can hold it up here, if you can see it, can people see it? Yes, it says Honorary Alderman, and at the back of it, Bill Davies, 2020. So when it's appropriate, as I said earlier, we will take it round to Bill's family and thank them for the wonderful work that Bill did for Wirral Council over 34 years. So thank you, members, all the members who turned up this evening. Once again, thank you to two people who proposed and seconded the motions. Before I finish, I'll just ask Councillor Mara McLaughlin to say the last word. Mara.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I don't think there's anything more that I can say, really, that hasn't been said already about Bill. The only thing I would say, as you held up the medal there, it did remind me that Bill was so long in the role of councillor that he was well entitled to take on the responsibility of being the mayor. And I know he was asked on a number of occasions. He always said, no, it wasn't really for him. Seeing that badge there, which is very similar to the mayor's badge and the past mayor's badge, there's a slight glimmer of humour in me that he's actually going to get one of those badges, even though he always said he didn't want one. But he deserves this title, and I'm so pleased he's going to get it. And thanks to everybody who said the kind words that were genuinely meant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor McLaughlin. Right. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the business of this extraordinary meeting of council. So once again, happy Christmas to everyone, and look after yourselves.